The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a scholar of the law, tested him by asking, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. The whole law and the prophets depend on these two commandments." The Gospel of the Lord.
On this World Mission Sunday, and on this day when we take up the annual Holy Cross Mission Appeal collection here in the Basilica, I want to start out this homily by being absolutely, totally honest with you. I have never served in the international mission of Holy Cross. However, by virtue of my ministry as the Assistant Provincial and Treasurer of our province, I have been blessed to visit all of the countries in which we serve and see the many ways that our priests and brothers make God known, loved, and served in difficult surroundings far, far away from their homes. For example, our Holy Cross parish in the Dandora slum of Nairobi, Kenya, sits on the edge of the largest outdoor garbage dump that I have ever seen. The streets are completely filled with garbage, and there are wild pigs running around amidst the most mind-numbing stench I've ever experienced. The parish compound is completely surrounded by hovels, with people offering for sale everything from raw meat hanging on hooks to ancient American t-shirts with Led Zeppelin logos. Not kidding. As I walked into the parish gates that day, I was immediately struck by the contrast between what was inside those walls and what was outside those walls. The parish school was full of students in neatly pressed uniforms, and I could hear the children singing. The health clinic run by the parish was the only place for hundreds and thousands of people to seek treatment when they were ill. Another group of adults was engaged in a lively Bible study, while nearby a group of women were preparing a meal for their neighbors who otherwise would have absolutely nothing to eat that day. As I looked around, it struck me what a tremendous beacon of hope that parish was for the entire neighborhood. On another trip to our Holy Cross mission in Monterrey, Mexico, I sat around the table with our priests and Mexican seminarians as they discussed whether or not to cancel their annual service project in the rural area about 8 hours south because of the ever-increasing drug cartel violence along the road. I heard tales of unsuspecting travelers on the road being pulled out of their cars and gunned down for absolutely no reason. I was so impressed when our men unanimously decided to continue that trip to show that they stood with the people and to bring them hope through their presence. But I have to tell you, I have never prayed more fervently for anything than their safety when they left a few weeks later. And thankfully, God answered my prayer, and the whole trip went without incident. I could tell you similar stories of our missionaries and the people they serve from my visits to Bangladesh, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Chile, and Mexico. But the one that still most inspires my faith was on my first trip to Uganda. I was celebrating Sunday Mass at Holy Cross, Bugembe Parish, and it was a lively liturgy with wonderful singing and a gospel procession that was a dance down the main aisle of the church. At the offertory, every single person in the church came forward and walked down that same aisle to the altar to put money in the collection basket. It was an amazing sight, seeing these parishioners, despite their own poverty, giving so that others might eat, so that others might have medical treatment, and so that others might hear the good news of Jesus Christ. Later, during the Eucharistic prayer, I looked out at the people and saw a great love of the Lord and a hunger for the Eucharist. And when the priest raised the host during the Eucharistic prayer and said, "This is my body," the entire congregation spontaneously erupted in applause. Similarly, when the priest raised the chalice and said, "This is my blood," again, thunderous applause. It was clear that despite their poverty and their lack of the basics of life that you and I take for granted, they took to heart what Jesus says in today's gospel. If we want to know the love of God, then we must love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind. And we must love our neighbors as we love ourselves. We can't not have one without the other. It was this same desire to fulfill the greatest commandment that led Father Soren and the other Holy Cross missionaries to come to the wilderness of northern Indiana in 1842. Their zeal to make God loved, known, and served led them to leave their families and their friends and the comforts of the civilized world to come to a country in which they didn't speak the language, where Catholics were persecuted, and in carrying only $500 to get started. Besides their zeal, what these early Holy Cross missionaries had was the staunch support of lay men and women back in France, whose prayers and monetary donations carried Notre Dame through those early days. And so as you walk around this magnificent and beautiful campus today, remember that it is all due to the mission appeals that Father Soren and those other early Holy Cross priests did on their trips back to France. As treasurer of our province, charged with financing our ministry throughout the world, I know firsthand how important the generosity of those in this country is for preaching the good news in faraway lands. And so I ask you to look deep in your hearts and see the good things that God has given you through his love and respond generously to that love. On behalf of all the Holy Cross religious and those we serve throughout the world, I thank you for your support. Be assured of our prayers and know that the next time that Jesus is applauded in the Eucharist in Bugembe Parish, you've helped make it happen.